Hello and welcome to Module 3 of Photography and Drawing Near to God, a Firm Foundation. In this session, we're going to look at some solid evidence and ideas that show that connecting with God in the outdoors has merit and is a good thing for us to do. Connecting with God through nature photography is something I've done over the years, both subconsciously and consciously. I was doing it for years before I realized it. I believe it's a great way to connect with God, and it's better when it's done consciously. But to be honest, a lot of that can be based on feelings, and therefore it may be a bit subjective. But is there any solid evidence that being outside is good for our overall well being? And can we better connect with God in the outdoors? Does the Bible have anything to say about this or give us any examples? Let's take a look and see if we're really on a firm foundation with this idea of drawing near to God through photography. But before we do all that, I want to go back to our last session to review finding our way. And the first thing we talked about in finding our way was our goal, because how could we find our way if we don't have a goal? And the goal of this course is to help you learn how to use nature photography to leave the stresses and distractions of this world so that you can better draw near to God and find greater peace and contentment in Him. And we also talked about who should take this course. We talked about that it's not about your skill level as a photographer or the camera you use. It's more about your desire to draw near to God and using nature photography to help you do that. And we talked about what is drawing near to God and why is it important. It's important because it helps us know God. It helps us know His truth. It helps us know His peace. Drawing near to God helps give us an eternal perspective and not a worldly perspective. Drawing near to God also helps us know God's plan for our life. If we don't draw near to God, how can we know His plan for our life? And knowing God's plan and living out His plan for our life is the way we can best have an impact with our life. And we talked about distractions, right? There's so much that distracts us. There's a lot of frivolous distractions in the world, right? But then there's also distractions that are basically good things, but sometimes those good things become overwhelming, like family, relationships, work, ministry, right? They're all good, but just by their very nature, sometimes they're going to overwhelm us or stress us out. And then we talked about God's revelation, right? The three ways God reveals Himself to us. Those three ways are special revelation through His Word, right? And then His revelation through His Holy Spirit. And then the general revelation. That is God using the things of His creation and how creation speaks to us about God and how God speaks to us through His creation. So that was what we established in our previous session about finding our way. Now we want to get into that firm foundation, and we're going to establish that firm foundation about drawing near to God through the outdoors and through nature photography. The first thing we're going to do in establishing that firm foundation is to look at the physical benefits of getting outside. Are there physical benefits? And if so, what are they? Then we're going to look at the biblical example of connecting with God through the outdoors. And I'm going to look at this idea of getting away from the noise and the things that distract us and how we can do that in the outdoors. And we're going to look at how creation, God's creation, inspires awe in us. And we're also going to look at the other spiritual benefits to getting outside. So let's get started with those physical benefits. What does the scientific research show? And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but I just want to touch on these things because I think it's important. Looking at such research gives us insight into how God designed us and what is best for us. First off, getting outside restores our mental energy. We all know about mental fatigue. Our brain simply doesn't work well, whether it's from too much work or too much stress or whatever. Sometimes our brain just doesn't feel like functioning as it should, and we have mental fatigue. But getting outside helps restore our mental energy. Wouldn't you like to be on that log right now, restoring your mental energy? The research shows that getting outside helps us get a mental bounce back. And being what the researchers call restorative environments, our brain gets a mental bounce back. And Michael Hyatt wrote a book along with his daughter Megan. They wrote a book, Mind Your Mindset. And in that book, they discuss how when we take our conscious mind and we completely leave the problem we're dealing with or what we're trying to do, and we get away from it, our subconscious mind actually continues to work on that problem or that challenge without us even knowing about it. And it actually helps produce a resolution to the problem that all of a sudden just hits us because we've been to that restorative environment. Also, being outside increases our creative thinking. Now, this is related to restoring our mental energy because, the more mental energy you have, the more creative you are. And research shows that getting outside makes us more creative in a variety of ways. And looking at God's creativity helps boost our creativity. And the longer we are outside, the better. And I believe that being creative in God's creation is another way we can draw near to Him. Being outside is also a stress relief. Being outside helps reduce the level of cortisol in our bloodstream. And cortisol is a stress hormone. It makes us feel stressed. It's brought on by stress. We don't like it. But studies show getting outside helps reduce it, especially if we're physically active like walking, hiking, kayaking, canoeing, rock climbing, whatever we like to do in the outdoors. It helps restore our mental energy and gives us a stress relief by reducing the level of cortisol in our bloodstream. And being outside also improves our mental health. And now I'd like to think that this one is also related to the previous one, stress relief, because the more stress relief we have, the better our mental health. But getting outside helps relieve anxiety, whether that anxiety is chronic or it's situational. Getting outside helps us deal with anxiety, and it also helps us deal with depression, whether that depression is clinical depression or situational depression. Getting outside helps us with it, especially if we're doing one of those physical activities. And one of the physical activities we can do outside is nature photography, and it could help us improve our mental energy, mental health, give us that stress relief, and improve our creativity and restore our mental health. But also there are physical health benefits to getting outside. Just getting outside makes us more physically active.